All right, welcome everyone. I want to take a few moments to discover what we're going to talk about in this session. And I want to introduce to you our Ed Tech Committee, which is sponsoring the training today. So let me go ahead and get my pen going here. And so for today's session, let me mention to you who's on our Ed Tech Committee. In case you have questions, what we're going to do is I'm going through the training because we're recording this and now we have well over 30 on there. We'll have a formal Q&A at the end where you can unmic and ask questions, and all of us that are on this call will do our best to help you, help one another here. So our chair is Bradley, and he's here on the call as well. I'm going to have him mention a little bit about our intermediate and advanced training in just a moment. Ahmad is with us as well, and Ray, and I didn't see Kevin. Kevin, are you with us? Rose is also on our committee, and of course Fritz. Fritz, we give him a title of our Ed Tech chaplain, so he's going to pray for us in just a moment too. And then Michael from IT is on the committee, and Mark Robertson, and myself. I think that was everyone. A good majority of those are on this call. And so as I'm going through the basic training, feel free to send a question in the chat, and the Ed Tech Committee is going to work to respond to those questions in an appropriate and timely manner. And again, we're going to have some time at the very end. We set aside some minutes for Q&A where we'll unmic and have a discussion as well. Okay. All right. So Bradley, why don't you talk just for a moment about some dates of the additional training? This is basic training. Will you mention a little bit about what's going to be involved in the intermediate and advanced Zoom training?
Sure, absolutely. So hello, everybody. So we're going to have 2 additional trainings that are going to occur on the next 2 following Tuesdays again, so the 16th and the 23rd. And the 16th will be our kind of intermediate training. It'll focus on the bottom bar row of icons that you would normally see as a host or a co-host of a meeting. And so there's about 11 or so icons down there, and it will be going through each of those, what they do, and a little bit deeper than we do in this basic training, talk about some advanced security features, advanced presenter features, things like that. And then in the advanced, we're still figuring out a little bit of the agenda for that one, but it will include some advanced features as far as setting up your default meeting settings in on the website zoom.us, and as well as possibly some like case studies, so applications like this is how you would handle these types of various situations that you might encounter, or various tips and tricks for doing discussions and things like that. So possibly some case studies. So those will be on the next 2 following Tuesdays. Same time, 1 p.m. So mark your calendars. We'll be sending out invites to those soon.
Very good. And just note too that we are going to have Moodle training as well this summer for you. Okay. So Fritz, would you commit this time to the Lord and ask him to help us in this endeavor as we prepare for the fall?
Absolutely. God, we do thank you. It's just a pleasure to be a part of a committee that is forward thinking and trying to, especially in this interesting and incredible time, Lord, figure out how we can all do our very best to be teachers. That's the goal, God, that we can communicate well, that our students can receive information and continue to grow in their college experience. So we just pray for today, Lord, that the information that's supposed to come out will come out, questions will be asked, and that any glitches you would just keep away so that we can be as smooth as possible. So we just thank you and give this time to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Fritz. All right, so just a couple opening remarks. as Fritz just prayed. We really, as the Ed Tech Committee, we really want to help you navigate this technology so you can be more effective as a teacher and transform lives. So really the tech that we're going to cover today is foundational for us to be effective teachers in the classroom, because we want to impact lives. And so that's the purpose of what we're trying to achieve here. So what I'm going to do is some basic items. I'm going to cover how to set up a Zoom block in Moodle. I'm also going to cover the basics of how to schedule a Zoom meeting, as well as just the icon basics. This is just an overview. In intermediate, you'll go over those in depth, but we'll just do a survey of those. How to actually share your screen and video, and use a little bit of the whiteboard as well. And then I want to cover a little bit about how to use the reports for your attendance. Our attendance is done in our faculty portal, but you can keep track of usage of who's logged in and so forth. So we'll talk about that. And then some other resources that I know will be helpful to you. And then again, at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So with that being said, go ahead and start thinking about some questions that you might have right now. And as I transition here, I want you to feel free to ask those questions. Looks like they're coming in right now. We have 3 or 4 on the chat. So in fact, if you want to send those to individuals that I mentioned that are on the Ed Tech Committee, you can do that as well if you don't feel comfortable sharing with everyone as well. Okay, so we really are trying to be a help here to you. All right, so why are we here? Well, as you all know, Kay sent this out, I believe about a week ago. And so let me just make sure that we're all clear on what we're trying to achieve here. So if you're teaching in the fall, and I don't think this is anyone on this call, that would be a yes. Following this decision tree, you have to make some decisions because we believe we're going to be at 50% capacity. So again, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here and understand why it's important that we understand the fundamentals today of Zoom. Because unless you are teaching a fully online class in Jessup Online and doing asynchronous, you're more than likely going to be doing synchronous Zoom. So unless this is set up already, you're not going to go this route. So we're basically taking this route here for most of us. So if you have an on-ground component, that's going to be here, and you're going to have 3 different options. And so the first one is a regular traditional classroom. And this is going to be based on obviously the size of your class. So if you have 7 or 8 students in a decent sized class, you'll probably be fine. But keep in mind, you're still going to need to record using Zoom, because more than likely you're going to have students that aren't going to be able to attend that class for legitimate reasons yet. So you're going to need to make sure you record that. We do not have Panopto in the fall. We're just using Zoom. So keep that in mind. I think this is probably going to be the most used, if I would have to speculate, and that's the mixed modality. Because of the size of our classes, typically 20, 25 or more, we're going to have to split our classes up. Again, planning with the 50% capacity in mind, as we've been informed to date. So that means you're going to have half the class in on, let's say, a Tuesday, and the other half class on Thursday. They're all going to be attending, but half will be on Zoom remotely. So again, Zoom is very important here as well. And then some of you, because of the content of your class, and it works well for Zoom as well, you're going to do a hybrid or a flipped class. And there you're going to basically do your analysis and discussion using Zoom. Again, that's going to be either fully classroom, part classroom, and Zoom. So if you do not have an on-ground component and you're fully Zoom, And this is going to be a limited number of us. That's probably going to be because you have legitimate reasons as a professor not to be back in the classroom. Again, you can do a regular course or a hybrid flip course there. So I want to make sure we're all clear right there on that issue. How about some questions on that? That's the instructions we've been given so far. And I'm not sure if we have anyone on the executive team that's present. Is Tina on this call? I know she had accepted. All right, let's go ahead and close that out there.
Manuel, I'm on the call.
Oh,
and
there you
so
go, Kay.
This is Kay, and Tina's on the call too.
Okay, great. Kay, can you give us any more updates pertaining to this?
No, well, I mean, most of you have probably seen the email where we have an employee who is positive COVID-19 and had some contact with students. And so we are currently already trying out our protocols, and you know, the ripple effect can be pretty wide in terms, we have 2 residents on campus that are now quarantined in apartments. And so we need, I'm glad that there's so many faculty here, because we, if we were in school, maybe one of your whole in-class, sections would have to suddenly switch and become quarantined or something. So we will still need to be flexible. There's no way to completely isolate our community from the virus.
All right, thank you, Kay. If there's questions for Kay, please put that in the chat box as well. I'm sure that Tina would want to know, and Tina, you can chime in if you like to, sooner than later, what format you're going to plan on doing, because that's going to determine which classrooms you may use or not use. So if you know that in advance, make sure you communicate that to your deans, chairs and leads, etc. So that gets to the registrar. Tina, any comments on that?
Yeah, the most helpful ones to know are if the larger classes are going to be completely Zoom, not meeting in person. That gives a large classroom for a smaller class to be able to meet potentially at 100% class meeting time.
All right. Very good. Okay, so there's the background. That's why we're doing this. More than likely, all of us are going to be using Zoom or a similar system this coming fall. We have to be flexible, and we want you to be able to be an effective teacher. And so that means we need to be able to navigate this valuable teaching tool. Okay, so the first thing I want to cover is how to set up a Zoom block in your Moodle. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. And by the way, help me out and be interactive here. And if you can see the Moodle page I put up there, can you just give me a thumbs up? All right. Ray actually used the nonverbal communication in Zoom. But it's okay if you want to give me a physical thumb up too. All right. Thanks, Ray. All right, so as you're looking at this Zoom course, and let's say your course is set up, basically what you want to do to embed a Zoom link, there's a lot of advantages to that, and I'll walk you through some of those, is come up here and turn editing on in Zoom, in your Moodle. And at this point, this is a master's class in accountancy that's starting soon. And so once you do that, typically you want to put your embedded Zoom block towards the top of your Moodle. And so hit add an activity or resource here. When this pops up, scroll down to the little puzzle piece that says external tool and just select that. Now you want to name this. I typically will just call it Zoom. But you can call it whatever you'd like. And then select here Zoom video conferencing. And then one last step here. Come down to grade. We don't want this to be graded. And just select none. And basically you just save that, return to the course, and now we have embedded Zoom into your Moodle classroom. Okay, so there it is, Zoom. Now when I click on this, it's a lot of functions here. When I set this up, schedule my classes, I can automatically record. So what that means is after I finish teaching, up here under cloud recording, all of my recordings will post there after they have processed, which is pretty quick after I finish. And all your recordings will be right there. You don't have to turn it off or on. It will be automatic as you set it up that way. And then once you set up your meetings, you can see all your meetings here. Once we set them up, they'll be listed here as well. It's easiest just to use this schedule a new meeting when you're actually doing it this way in the block, and you can set it up for a recurring meeting that way. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so this class, let's assume this class will be on a Thursday. And so, let's see here. So this coming Thursday, well, let's say it's going to be on the 18th. So let's put it on the 18th. And it's going to be, let's say, an afternoon class at 1 p.m. And the class is for an hour and a half. Make sure you have the right time zone, Pacific. It is a recurring meeting. And let's just say that this is a weekly meeting. And that it meets only on Thursday. And then you can put in the end date of this. And let's just say for our purposes, that end date will be on the 30th of July. Okay, we continue to scroll down. You'll see a number of items that are preset. I would typically leave those as they are. Required meeting password, this is preset. I also like to mute participants upon entry so that they're muted as they come on. You can also enable the waiting rooms if you prefer. And then, very important, select record the meeting automatically. And you can do it on the computer, on the cloud. Just put it on the cloud, it'll show up here in Moodle when you're finished with that. All right, and there's some advanced options too that you can look at a later time. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And so now we have scheduled our meeting in our block. All the times are there. The students can go there. You can click on this and all of your meetings, upcoming meetings will be listed there. And there they are. And then all you have to do is come here and hit start on that particular time for that particular class. And you're right in Zoom. Now, if you want to make a recording offline, let's say you want to record a lecture or part of a lecture and post it in Moodle, just do it right here by yourself. Just click start and you can record like you would on any other type of recording device and save that right here for your students as well. No need to post anything. You can record yourself doing another lecture or part of a lecture and it will post here automatically as well. And just let your students know it's there. Okay, so ask some questions if you haven't already there. And again, when you click cloud recordings, all the recordings will show up right there that you've made here through your block. All right, another item I wanted to share with you here is Get Training. So you can select that and you have a whole host of information that will pop up here on training for additional resources for Zoom. And you can see a whole bunch of different aspects of Zoom meetings for education. What I like is some of the other materials for educators that are very helpful. So we're talking about tech here, but we're also talking about pedagogy, how to teach with this technology to be more effective. By the way, we've asked you to do the desktop app or client, which is basically what we're using now, what I'm using. But if you wonder what the mobile app and the web client, the capabilities are, how they compare, Zoom has a nice grid here that shows you the limitations and advantages of using various desktop versus the actual web client, etc. I like this Zoom for educators. So if you click here to Zoom for educators, there's a whole bunch of resources out here that I want to point you to. Educating over Zoom. And there's some blogs here, some helpful information. Here's some tips and tricks for teachers educating on Zoom. This is a nice summary on a couple pages. And again, they give you a whole bunch of other resources at the end of this. So that's very helpful. There's a whole host of resources here, even stuff for administration. How about even for those that are learning, the students? This is kind of already pre-made. You can customize this, of course. Helpful tips for students to be successful online. Make sure you're muted when you're not talking, respectful, using the chat function. Set up an intentional space where the class is going to happen. So a lot of good resources out there to help you just have a good experience online with your students, and that they're learning from what you're teaching them as well. All right, so that is how you set up your Zoom block within your particular class. And again, it records there. You can use it for offline recording when you're not actually in a class, and that will post there as well. And a lot of resources you can use there. All right, how about some questions there? I see some coming through. I'll go ahead and pause there for a moment, and let's go ahead and respond to some questions. I see a few more people have joined us. It's good to see we have 39 there on the call. It's always good to see Jim Crane. Hey, Jim.
I think we've been covering a lot of the questions as they come up. Good to know. Bobby was wondering about if IT's putting this online for us on Moodle, or we are, and the answer is we are now responsible for scheduling our own. And then the one from Richard, I don't think, I think is a really good question to maybe read and look at that one and have some conversation about how it's being recorded if we're in mixed modality.
Okay. All right. And anyone on the ed tech team, would you respond to those as we continue here in the training? And if you're joining us and just signing in, please ask as many questions as you might have. Our ed tech committee, a good number of them, I would say maybe 4 or 5 at least, are on this call, and they're responding to your questions in the chat. We're also going to have a formal question and answers at the end as well. Okay. So let me go ahead and move on to some basic scheduling. If you're not using a block in Moodle, how do you set that up? Let's go ahead and talk about that for a moment. So let me go ahead and share this again. All right, and so when you're using your desktop app, it will look similar to this. You can see here your meetings coming up and so forth. But when you go to the home, you can schedule here. Can everyone see that okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Tina. All right, so select schedule. You can call this whatever you like to call it. So by the way, if you're teaching fully online, asynchronous, and you're with us, have some voluntary time where you meet the students, maybe for tutoring or just counseling a little bit on a particular topic. For asynchronous classes all the time, I offer voluntary synchronous times using Zoom. So that way it's a more personal touch with each student. I do all of the tutoring so I can demonstrate problems. Typically the grad students I teach in finance or accounting want me to work them through various calculations and formulas and so forth. So you can set up a Zoom meeting to do any of that. It's not just for your class time per se. You can do even advising if you need to through Zoom as well. So here you can title whatever the meeting's about, title it so that maybe it's an advising meeting or it's a tutoring meeting so that you know what it is. And then you can select a date here and the time. And again, the duration. If you don't want to go an hour, notice here it has all that listed. You can put 0 there. Maybe you just want to have a 30-minute meeting. And this wouldn't be a recurring meeting because let's say I'm going to do some tutoring offline. But you can also make it a recurring meeting as well. And this will generate automatically the ID, password. And again, you have all these preset functions that typically you want to leave the same there. Now for advanced options, here you can enable the waiting rooms. Here you want to automatically record if this is important that you record that session as well. And you can also have a co-host or alternate host there as well. So that's how you can schedule a meeting as well that way. So pretty simple to do when you have the desktop app from that aspect there. All right, so the next item I want to cover really has to do with sharing, first of all, the screen and a little bit of video. And I want to do that by actually sharing you a video that I quickly made yesterday on this topic of the icons, an overview of the Zoom icons. So that's what I want to share with you. So keep asking questions. It looks like we have a few more questions that haven't been responded to. But keep on asking those questions and we'll get to those questions. All right, so I want to show you this video. And let me resume sharing. So this is a video about the overview of screen sharing of the icons primarily. So let me stop there. Let me go ahead and show you exactly what I would do. I would go to screen share, select your share computer sound, and then share it there. So let's go ahead and watch this. It's only about 3 minutes long. The quality is not the best. I made this yesterday, but you'll get the idea of how you can share a video. You can make these type of videos again, whether it's Zoom or Camtasia or whatever you like to use. You can post these in Moodle or you can post those automatically as well. I'm going to walk you through an overview of the Zoom icons. Now notice at the bottom, as the host, you have a variety of icons, beginning with mute. You can select that. The menu will allow you to select a specific microphone, speaker, and you can test your speaker or microphone. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. We can then go to our video. This is our camera where we can select our camera, choose a virtual background, or adjust our video settings. Next we have security. Here you can lock the meeting, you can enable the waiting room, and you can also allow participants to do a variety of items. Next we have the participants. It will list by name as they signed in. You can also change their name. If they did not use the correct name, you can mute them here as well. The chat function allows you to communicate non-verbally. Students can ask a question this way. You can respond this way to the group or to an individual. Then we have share screen. This is an important function as you want to share a document or maybe your PowerPoint lecture with them. Click here and advanced settings will allow you to let the students also share, only after you're done sharing, of course, their screen. Maybe they want to do a presentation. Select the green icon here and then we can select screen. If you're going to share a video, always make sure you click here, share computer sound. Very important that you do that or else you won't have proper sound. Okay. Also under share screen, I would point out the whiteboard function. Click whiteboard, share, and a whiteboard will pop up. And of course, if you use this to demonstrate any type of problem, you can simply demonstrate it here. 2 + 2 = class. And then you can just erase that. 22 if you work for the government. Okay, you can also annotate on your PowerPoints using that function as well, not necessarily just the whiteboard. You can record here either on the computer or on the cloud. Now if you've embedded your Zoom block in Moodle, then we've set that up to record automatically. Breakout rooms, another session will be held on breakout rooms, and basically you can manually or automatically create those rooms. And then reactions or nonverbal communication here. So if you want to make sure they're tracking with you, the students are with you, you can ask, does everyone understand? Instead of turning on their microphone, they can give you a thumbs up. And when someone does something commendable, we want to applause. All right, the last thing I would cover here would be up here in the left-hand corner. This tells you that you are using enhanced encryption. And then here, this is the information on the class. You can copy the link if you did not invite somebody and need to invite them during the class. Okay, that should do it for this overview of the Zoom icons. All right, so that's an overview about the icons. So if you have questions about those, let us know for sure. Okay, Tina, thank you. I appreciate that. So let me pause this. Ask some questions before I go to the next section. I am going to spend a little bit more time on the video sharing and show you how you can annotate PowerPoint slides as you share those as well in just a moment. But take a moment or two to ask any other questions that you have, and let's get those answered as well. All right.
Manuel, I have a question for you.
Keith, go for it.
This goes back to the early one. I had to switch computers because my other one was frozen. When we talked about 50% of the classroom and the other 50% being on Zoom, how are we going to handle that in the classroom so that are we talking about handling that in the classroom so that the 50% that are on Zoom is listening to the same lecture as the 50% in the class?
Yes, that's my understanding, Keith. And so you're teaching live in the classroom, and Zoom will be recording that. Now, I do know Michael and IT is working on configuring the cameras better than they were for Panopto and audio, and so we're trying to enhance that as well. But they're all attending at that particular time, just half would be in the classroom and half would be remote. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, very good. All right, so let's move on then to a little more detail about the screen share, because this is an important function. And so I'm going to pull up a PowerPoint here. And if you can see that, give me a thumbs up, please. Wiley CPA Excel. Okay. All right, so what we can do here when we're teaching, just to make it a little more interactive, again, use the technology so you're interactive. It's going to be a challenge, especially for longer classes, right? Most of the classes that I'm teaching with Zoom are 3.5 hours long, and we do typically give them a break in the middle. But you have to be creative and innovative and keep them engaged. And that does mean you're using a whole variety of means, because you're not in front of them anymore. You can't kind of walk towards them as you could before. And so you have to really be innovative here. So when you annotate, you can come up here and select whatever color you want to use, of course, with the annotation. And right here, I have a variety of different colors. Let's say I'm going to use yellow here. And as you're walking through the PowerPoint, you can underline, underscore some very important areas. Of course, this is for our master's program, and so they're learning about important aspects of practicing before the IRS. Everyone, I'm sure, is thrilled to practice in front of the IRS. But in any event, this is something that's a very helpful feature to you as a teacher. And then you can either undo quickly what you just did last, or you can clear all the drawings there before you go on to your next slide. And then in your next slide, of course, you can just pull up. And you have a variety of ways to do this as well as you go to. Up here too, you can actually next to the share screen button is the pause screen. And I'm going to hit that. And now I'm going to go to different documents and different slides. And are you seeing a different slide, or are you seeing the main slide? You're just seeing the main one, right? And I've just went to 5 different slides as I'm doing my preparation, because I went ahead and paused the sharing. So now I can go back and resume sharing, and I pulled up a different slide that I want you to now focus on. And again, I can annotate on that as well. And so this is an important feature, important way for you to communicate and have some more interaction from that aspect.
Can you show that one more time? How did you pause your slides?
Yeah, so great question. So I have a floating menu that you can not see right now, and you will have it as the host. And right next to the share screen icon will be pause screen. You just select that pause screen. It's a button right next. It's the second icon adjacent to new screen or share screen. And then unclick that. When I do click that, it will tell me your screen is being paused. And so it's a big yellow thing. It pops up on my screen. It says you're paused right now. And so that reminds me to go ahead to go back and now share my screen. And you didn't know this, but I went to 2 or 3 different slides before I went back to that one. You don't see that. So really important for teaching effectiveness. And again, we're trying to help you navigate so you can teach well and inspire your students as you deliver very relevant material to them. So this takes practice, and that's the bottom line is get in there and practice. Practice over and over on a lot of these different tools. The other aspect of this, of sharing your screen, is the video, and that's very important. What I typically like to try to do, and again, it's up to you and the type of topic that you teach, but I like to try to have a very short 2 or 3 minute video that draws in their attention and really is something we can have a springboard of discussion about, something really relevant to that topic today. Let me share with you a video that I've used before, like in the economics course, when we want to talk about the economics of secular labor, for example. We all know that God calls people into the ministry, but does he call people in business? Does he call people to be managers of a company? And so obviously young students don't really understand the biblical perspective of that. So we would have a discussion about that. And so I would show a video, let's say, similar to what I'm going to pull up right now. So let me go ahead and pause this. And as I'm pulling up that video, be sure you're asking plenty of questions because we want to make sure that we're answering those questions for you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I'm sharing my audio with you.
I've got a question again, Manuel.
Yeah, go for it, Keith.
What I was a little frustrating when we were finishing out the semester with Zoom is that occasionally I like to use the presenter's point of view so I can see my notes. And if I put the presenter's view up, that's what the students saw. So have we got a workaround on that?
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer in front of me for that. I believe what I've done in the past is recorded a lecture where I've made what I wanted to record, just that portion. And therefore they don't see the rest of it, but that's for recording. I don't know if Zoom Live will allow us to limit the actual screen. I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive, there is a function under the advanced settings for that. Does anyone on the EdTech committee, are you aware of that function? In fact, let me go ahead.
I'm not aware how the presenter mode with PowerPoint works. I do, in presenter mode, can't you split the PowerPoint on one screen and the notes on a separate screen in a dual screen scenario? Isn't that how it works? Like if you're
I haven't seen that option, Bradley.
I thought that's how it worked.
There, I'm just saying I haven't seen it.
I think that may be how it works when you're in the classrooms, because that's essentially a dual screen setup, because you have the projector and then the desktop in front of you. And I think in presenter mode, it shows the slides on one screen and then your notes on just like the desktop. In that case, if you're doing a screen share, you can choose to share an entire screen rather than a specific application, and it'll only share what's on that screen. So presenting from a dual screen scenario, like two screens either in your office or at home or in one of the classrooms, should allow you to get the effect you're looking for, where they can only see the PowerPoint but not see your notes.
Okay, I might be able to use that with the new sidecar option on iPad, so I'll check that out.
Yeah, and Keith, we'll also check into this. I don't know if you can see this, but I pulled up the advanced option on screen share, and you can select a portion of your screen there. Can you see that in front of you?
I can see a blank slide in front of me.
Okay, there is an option there for a portion of screen, so we'll have to try that out.
Okay.
And I'll try it out myself and let you know how that works.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, so back to video. I'm going to show you a little quick video. This is only about maybe 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And again, make sure you're sharing your computer sound, and then you can share the video.
Our lives are not divided into two halves, with one part being sacred and another part secular. Worship is not reserved only for Sunday morning,
Fritz, can you hear that okay?
but for Monday morning as well. Every time we get out of bed and ready ourselves for the day. Every time we labor at a task, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Every moment is a gift. Every moment belongs to the one who gave us that moment. There is a way that leads a man to flourish. It is freedom. The freedom to discover his true potential, to keep the fruits of his labor, to find fulfillment in his work. These freedoms are the right of every person, because they come woven into the God-given dignity of every person. Where they exist, societies and people flourish. Where they are absent, there is only poverty. These freedoms must be championed. For this is God's design for us, for the good of all He has created.
All right, and then we can have a discussion about the secular, sacred, vocational callings. So sharing a video is very important. Make sure you do select your computer sound or the sound will not come through. The sound actually came through pretty well, right? I had to turn it down a little bit for you because it came through so well. The other thing is I typically don't share videos too long because you don't want to lose them after 4 or 5 minutes. So keep those video clips short. All right, keep on asking those questions. I want to get to the last portions of our training today. And I'm going to pull up the web client in just a moment, but go ahead and ask questions that you might have through the chat. And then I'm going to finish up the last portion of our training, and then we'll have a formal Q&A in just a moment. So go ahead and ask those, and I'll set up here for our next training portion. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I pulled up my web client, and what I want to show you is how to use the usage report. So let me go ahead and share that with you. All right, so this is using my browser and going through the web client portion. Notice this is a profile here. This is what it looks like. And down below, you can see reports here to the left. Does everyone see that? Reports? If you see that, would you give me a thumbs up, please? All right. So we're going to click on reports. From reports, you can then click on usage here at the top. Don't click on meetings, click on usage. And I'm going to look for May. It'll search basically a month at a time. And here's my Zoom meetings and usage. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up one of our last faculty, School of Business faculty meetings, because I know they won't mind me sharing their names and stuff here. All right, so first of all, click Show Unique Users, because it will help you to combine those that might have signed in and got knocked off and signed in again. And they have different, same person, different durations. That will make it unique. And you can export with the meeting information so you know what date it was. And simply click Export. And that will allow you to have a spreadsheet that has when they signed in, when they logged off, and how long they were in that meeting. You can also just from here open up another screen and input into our faculty portal attendance. Now, just as a caveat, what I do, because just because they're signed in or signed off at a certain time and their duration is proper, doesn't mean they actually attended class. A best practice that I've always used for my classes that I teach is I make sure that they do have their cameras on, unless it's a break. And so that's something else we can talk about further as well. Because some people might sign on if their camera's not on and go down the street to the supermarket and come back an hour later. So you want to make sure that you're not keeping attendance just on that. You have to make sure they're participating in class. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that with the camera and breakout rooms and other ways as well. Okay, so ask questions about that. Again, you're using this kind of as your standard for inputting because this record's kept all the time in Zoom. So you know who signed in. This is why it's important for them to sign in with first and last name. And you can go in there and change their name if you needed to, but you need to do that before you run this report because you don't want it to say iPhone, for example. That will be a problem. You won't know who that person is, and that's what happens when they typically will sign in on an iPhone. All right, so ask questions on that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention to you was some resources. And again, we're going to populate Faculty One Stop with some of these videos and other additional training that we're doing. I wanted to just give you before we go, a couple items to consider and think about, and then give you some final thoughts before we do Q&A. So teaching with Zoom, again, it's not an exact science. You have to really practice. And so from UNR, they had a nice web page publicly available, and I adapted some of their information. I didn't want to recreate the wheel here. So notice there's some hyperlinks in here with additional training. So all the stuff we talked about, plus a whole lot more, this will be a good resource, and we'll put this on the faculty one-stop for you. Review your host controls and meeting settings. Consider making slides or discussion questions available in advance in case you have a breakdown. Make sure you have in Moodle what you're going to be covering as well. Anticipate potential challenges, especially in the first week or two of your classes. It's going to happen. Technology either on their end or on your end, nothing really typically goes as planned. Determine and communicate Zoom course etiquette in advance. Should cameras be on at all times? These are things you have to consider. Will mics be muted on the entry and throughout teaching? Do they need to sign in with their first and last names? Or if you're going to use the usage report for input of attendance, it's really important that they do. Should they be at a table or a desk that's free of distractions, not dressed in their pajamas or what have you, at least the top portion of what you can see, to replicate a classroom environment. How do they ask questions? All of these things are things you want to make sure that you think through ahead of time. What Zoom backgrounds are acceptable? There's a whole host of them out there today, and a lot of them are not things that you would want in a class. And so consider these items, and then try to fine tune some of that, and put a paragraph maybe in your syllabus about that, or at least inform the students at the beginning of class so they understand what you expect from the etiquette there. But a lot of material here on this 2 or 3 pages, use screen sharing. And again, there's a lot of good helpful hints and other links in here, how to use the chat tool to connect with students, collaborative learning, using polling. That's going to be a more intermediate advanced topic as well. The breakout rooms, again, another intermediate advanced topic. And then students will also do presentations in your class. And so you want to make sure that they realize how they can use Zoom on their end to do real-time presentations in a synchronous type meeting, or actually how to record and do a presentation and load that up into Moodle for you as well. So those are just some teaching items. We'll make those available as well. Keep the questions coming. We have just a few minutes here left, and I want to bring your attention to one more item here, and that is the IT website that they have put together for Zoom information. If you haven't been to that website, it has a lot of things that we've talked about today, and here's that website here for other resources as well. All right, so let's unmute for a little bit and ask any questions for the EdTech committee. Let's just have a Q&A time for a few moments that we have left, and hear from you guys more.
Hey, Manny, could I ask a quick question? Or I don't know if it's quick, but.
For sure.
Okay, assuming that you set up your Zoom link in Moodle, and is it automatically recording and saving the recording of each class session, or is there a way to just make sure that the student is there live and that the actual class isn't being recorded and saved?
Yeah, Richard, you have the option to do either one. You can record it yourself and control it when it records, when it pauses, when it stops recording, or you can have it automatically record. The choice is
right.
really
But so, I mean, is there a way just to make it like a live Zoom meeting without being recorded, or does it always have to be recorded once you set it up in Moodle?
No, it doesn't have to be recorded.
Okay, at least theoretically, you could just make sure that everyone's synchronous there at that time, and that it's not being saved. The meeting isn't being saved for later viewing. I mean, is that one of the options in the Moodle shell?
Yeah, I'll let someone else speak into that. The capability is possible. I would suspect that you're going to have students who are going to want to go back and review recordings. For classes that I teach that are very quantitative, they go back and see how we work out problems. So I typically will record everything and put it back out there. So someone else want to chime in on that?
Well, Manuel, I got a question. If that recording is not mandatory and happens all the time, what about students who miss the class and need to watch the recording?
Exactly. So in my view, you're going to want to record it. If everyone was there and it wasn't something that people would benefit from going back and reviewing, the capability is there for not to record, but I'm not sure if you would want
I
to.
guess I'm referring more to like a mixed modality format where, you know, the students either there in the classroom or on the Zoom link, then, you know, either or is it, you know, just, you know, they either have to be online even if they're sick, or they're sick and not online, in which case they would normally get notes from a classmate, or they're there in the class. I'm trying to understand what the need for actually recording the class session and posting that to Google would be at that point.
I guess I'm trying to understand why we wouldn't want to have it automatically recorded and not have
Well,
to.
some people don't like recording, Keith. I mean, some people feel that recording is an intrusion into the classroom, into classroom discussions. So I'm just curious if that's an option or not. I mean, that's all I'm trying to find out.
I would say that's probably a good question for Kay. If she's still on the call, maybe she can respond to that or respond to that offline. But
Okay. All right. Thank you.
okay, how about some others? Kay, are you online? Can you address that with Richard?
I am online. I think the general practice should be to record because we're in a situation where we don't just have students who might be sick for a day. We also have students who have been having trouble with internet, they're home, they're with vulnerable population. There's lots of factors in this situation we haven't had before. But the general practice I think should be to record because we don't know when we may we may have to switch from, you know, you saw the employee red phase, yellow phase, green phase. We may have to jump phases really fast with our teaching. But I know that Richard in particular, who he's for other people, not just himself, but I know he has a workaround that allows for a different way of accommodating this need. So I'm open to those kinds of exceptions because the principle is still being met.
Thanks, Kay. Richard, does that help?
Can I address the why we video statement? So for example, in my class, I would have 4 people in one home trying to share one computer. And so my students couldn't log into my class at my time. And so they would have to watch it later, or they had poor internet during my time session and they needed to watch it later. So that was the benefit of it automatically recording. But I asked Bradley this question. Sometimes if they have poor internet and can't access me during my time, they also have poor internet and they can't access the video either. So I really struggled. That was my biggest problem, was just them having access to my video or my Zoom training.
Okay, Manuel, I got a few that kind of came from our conversations. What's Enable Meeting Room?
Enable the meeting room?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, the waiting room.
Waiting room.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't want, you're not. Let's say, for example, you're the host, and you don't want everyone just coming on at one time. You can determine who comes in. It's a waiting room, and you're calling them in or letting them in at one at a time, so you know exactly who's coming into that room. That would be used for maybe a smaller type class.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on there also was you were checking the password required. Our students haven't needed, we haven't needed a password if we just click on the link, correct?
That's correct. If we are actually setting it up in the class, it does have a password. So people on the outside that are not in that class
Right.
would need to have a password to get into that. They would have a meeting ID, and if you use that meeting ID, not the link, then you would have to have the password as well to get into that class. And you
Right.
can lock down the classroom so that no one else can get in there as well.
And then Mike Granjikoff put it up there, but Cynthia also mentioned how she loved closed captioning. What's that about?
Yeah, Mike, you want to expound on that a little bit?
I think he put it as a question mark. So if Cynthia's here, maybe she can talk about it if she's still around.
Well, I was wondering, how do you make closed captioning? So as I'm talking, if I've had students with hearing issues in the past, so how do I make sure that what I'm saying during class has closed captioning? Is that a possibility?
Right, that's correct, Mike, exactly.
How do you turn it on?
Yeah, Kevin is our expert on the Ed Tech committee in that area, so we'll ask him to get back with us. There are functions that allow us to do closed captioning. Typically, though, on campus, we do have in the media services, they're probably overloaded with their online materials now, but they actually will help with some of that as well. But it's important that we do make sure that it's accessible to everyone from that aspect. But Kevin would be the expert on that. I don't think Kevin's on the call. He's on the Ed Tech committee, so we'll find the answer to that some solutions, and we'll post that on Faculty One Stop for you.
And then Manuel, I have one more. Bradley, do you have something on that?
Yeah, the closed captioning should just be an option within the meeting settings. So when you're setting up the initial meeting, there should be just a little toggle button that you can turn on closed captioning, and then it'll appear on the bottom control bar, and individual participants can turn it on and off. We'll make sure to enable closed captioning for the next meeting so that people can kind of observe its use.
Bradley, will that do closed captioning for any outside videos that you're showing?
That I don't know. I don't know.
That's what I was particularly thinking about. So we'll find out. We'll do a little more research, and so you can probably cover that in the intermediate or advanced courses, I would imagine.
And then just the last question I had is, people would like to practice. How do you practice? I tried to practice by myself and I couldn't do that. How do I practice?
Yeah, so if you have the, well, first of all, have the desktop app, and then just start a meeting. You can just go on to have your own meeting yourself. You can record yourself. You can play with the icons. You can do whatever you need to prepare for your class. I would actually practice what you're going to do in your class. If you couldn't probably see mine, but I typically have anywhere from 6 to 10 tabs open, so that I have everything open. So when I go from one item to the next, it's already open. And so you want to be able to practice those type of things to keep the flow properly, and make sure everyone's staying engaged. You don't want to lose anyone.
I think it's beneficial to find a friend or two to practice with. That helps me to practice.
Yes, for sure. That's a good comment. So typically the newer instructors that I'll train, I'll go ahead and set up a Zoom meeting with them and then train with them using Zoom. So that's always very helpful to do that. We're over a little bit on time, but I want to be able to take a few more moments if you have other questions. And then send any other questions that you have to us. Once you send them to either myself or to our chair, Bradley, and we'll make sure that we respond to those questions as well. And maybe some of those will be topics that we want to include in our advanced training, which is not completely hammered out yet. It's really based on your feedback from this and our intermediate training coming up next week as well.
I may have missed this, but maybe it's super basic for everybody. I recorded last semester and the recording jumped from me to I don't know how many students during the session. And then of course I'm teaching ASL, and unfortunately it didn't record any of my signs. So, and we don't use voice. So how do I do that? Do I just pin myself for the entire time? Is that how to keep it on the camera on me?
Yeah, so typically if you're just recording, Bradley, you can go ahead and respond to that.
So when you're, if you go into your settings at zoom.us, there are actually 6 different recording options that you can turn on or off that compose the video in different formats, either with primary screen being presenter, speaker view, gallery view with presentation. I forget what all the different settings are, but you can look at those in there. And so you can select which compositions are recorded and uploaded and allow the students, you can either choose which one you want, or what I've done is I've just selected all of them because I always think more is better. And then I just allow the students to choose whichever recording they want to view that serves their particular purpose, whether it stays focused on me, the host, or switches between presenter or shows kind of a gallery view.
All right, very good. All right, how about one last question before we wrap up? Everyone good? All right, let me have a word of prayer with you before we go then. Father God, thank you for this faculty. Thank you for our time here as we've committed this school year to you. We just pray that you would order our steps, that you would help us to effectively navigate so we can effectively teach and transform lives. We commit all this to you and just pray that you would be with our students and help them, keep them healthy, and encourage them to be excited about returning this fall. We dedicate this time and this school year to you in the precious name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manuel. That was great.
Thanks, Kay. See you later.
Yeah, great job, Manuel.
You too, Fritz.
That's good, Fritz. Fritz, you had some great questions.
I just don't know anything, so.
No, you do. You asked some great questions.
Yep.
See you, Jim. Looking good, bro. You're the man. You got this.
I was on the river trail. Oh, Jim's gone. Good job,
Pamela,
Brett.
I'll email you.
All right. See you guys.
Yep.
I guess I'm the last one. Ahmad, take care. Thanks for your help.
Thanks so much. Sure. I'm sharing a doc with everyone, the participant, all the questions. So we'll use these. And
Yes.
with Piana's question.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, Ahmad. Take care. All right. Kyle, you still there? All right. We'll end the meeting.